Dragon Ball Super Broly showed that Toriyama's not afraid to take characters that were not in the original manga and sort of reinvent them or reboot them, recreate them for the modern era of Dragon Ball. And it makes you wonder what other characters Toriyama might at some point in the future, recreate, whether it be Cooler or Baby. And I'm looking into some of the more, I guess, popular characters that were not in the original manga, and I think the one that pops in my head that I've noticed that a lot of Dragon Ball fans really seem to love is from the Other World Tournament, Pikkon, otherwise known as Paikuhan. In fact, Pikkon isn't even his name. That was a big mistranslation, a big translation error in the original Dragon Ball Z English dub. His name is Paikuhan, and I decided to go ahead and do a video about Paikuhan and tell you his history and what we know about the character, because there's a lot of mysteries with the character, but what we do know I think is very interesting. So let's get right into the history of Paikuhan right now. If you like anime and you've already got a Crunchyroll account, switch over to Verve, where the Crunchyroll account can become integrated into the system and you can watch anime like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Fairy Tail, Sword Art Online, SSS Gridman. Plus, in addition to that, you have access to all the channels included in Verve, including Boomerang for old cartoons, Nick Splat, Nerdist, High Dive for more anime, Shudder for horror movies. You get so much with Verve. Just try it out for free. The link is down below. 30 free days. vrv.co/geekdom. Even though we've only seen Paikuhan for a really brief time in the series, 5 Dragon Ball Z episodes of the Otherworld Tournament filler arc, a few bonus appearances in the Buu Saga, and of course in Fusion Reborn, you'd be surprised to how popular he is. In fact, did you know that in 2017, there was a survey in V-Jump magazine where they asked the Japanese readers which character they want to replace Fat Buu as the 10th member of Team Universe 7, and actually Paikuhan was the winner. So even in Japan, people are very intrigued at this character, and I think that Toriyama, should he choose to bring him back, would probably be a wise move business-wise, because people seem to really like the character even though he's very mysterious. But again, perhaps that mystery is why people like him. Same thing goes with people like Hit, who's really popular. Now, another thing I want to quickly talk about, speaking of Toriyama, is that no, Paikuhan is not in the original manga, but that does not mean that Toriyama did not have a hand in creating him. In fact, Toriyama was heavily involved, well, somewhat heavily involved, in the Otherworld Tournament story arc in Dragon Ball Z. No, this arc is not in the manga, but he did help out a lot with creating not only the character of Pikkon. In fact, if you look right here, you see the design sheet that he turned into Toei to create him. So yes, he was created by Toriyama, even though he was not in the manga, but also this is the arc where Toriyama would expand the cosmos and introduce the other Kaio-samas, the other Kais, into the main franchise, and he also provided designs for those, as well as during the creation of this arc back in the 90s, Toriyama submitted to Toei the design for the Dragon Ball universe for the very first time. So this would be helpful for the Toei animators and the Toei staff to create stories around it, but also for himself. He had not designed this for himself for the manga, but he did to help out the anime, and of course this would be referenced as official Dragon Ball lore in guidebooks and also within the series. So yes, Paikuhan is indeed a character created by Toriyama. Now, another thing that people seem to get confused is whether or not he is a Namekian. Number one, no, he is not a Namekian, but there was a huge mistake made many years ago in one of the Dragon Ball Z card games that do list him as a Namekian. This is incorrect. Pikkon is not a Namekian, but in the original design sheet when he submitted it to Toei Animation, he did state that he is a Piccolo type character, and he even tells the anime staff to use Piccolo as a reference for the facial expression. So he was intended to be a serious sort of stoic martial artist like Piccolo is, and a mini rival for Goku for the Otherworld tournament. But if you look at Dragon Ball Z, you can tell that they didn't really have many plans for him after this because he has very few appearances. He was never intended to be a big deal, only for this arc, which really is his arc, the 5-episode Otherworld tournament. If you want to rewatch this, check out Dragon Ball Z episodes 195 to 199. There is no Kai version because, that filler arc wasn't in Kai, even though he does make a very brief appearance in a very brief little montage at the end of the Cell Saga of Kai. The actual tournament's not there, so has to be a DBZ viewing. Anyways, what we do know about Pikkon is that he is from the Western Quadrant, okay? And now it's implied that planet Namek is in the Southern Quadrant. I might do a different video about that. So that right there tells you he's not Namekian. But we do know that he was a very powerful student, a very powerful martial artist, and earned the trust of the West Kai. And that's where he basically became the best martial artist that represented the Western Quadrant from the West Kai. And the first time that we actually see him in action, the writers of Dragon Ball Z made sure to let us know that this guy was not a joke. What ends up happening is there seems to be the trouble going on in the other world with previous villains from Dragon Ball Z, Frieza, King Cold Cell, and the Ginyu Force, and Goku goes down there with Paikuhan, and they dispatch these guys rather quickly. The most impressive feat we saw was the fact that Pikkon was able to easily mop the floor with Frieza, King Cold, and Perfect Cell. We just got done watching a 77-episode arc where Perfect Cell was deemed to be the most threatening enemy they ever faced, and Pikkon took him out in just seconds. So, yeah. This always bugged me, to be honest with you, but whatever. They had to get Pikkon over, and that was their idea to, I suppose, do it. So during the Otherworld tournament, of course, the finals end up being Goku and Pikkon in a really fun little epic fight where we see Pikkon using some pretty interesting techniques like his Thunder Flash attack, and he does a move called the Hyper Tornado, which is one of my favorite moves in Dragon Ball. A very underrated move where he spins at these really fast speeds, creating a tornado drill, and then entraps you. He can do whatever he wants with you. I always thought that was a cool move. Of course, the Thunder Flash or Ultimate Flash is pretty much his biggest move, but it's also what led him to be defeated by Goku, because Goku figured out that when he does this move, he leaves himself open, and thus Goku was able to teleport and fire a Kamehameha from the side and was able to eliminate Paikuhan. But then we find out that that's not necessarily the final finish of the matchup, because earlier in the fight, both Goku and Pikkon touched the roof of the arena, and thus that counts as a ring out, and thus they were both disqualified. But it is hinted that the Grand Kai feared Pikkon and Goku and didn't want to give them that training that he promised them if they won. Of course, Pikkon says that one day he will defeat Goku, which is something that everybody says. But that wouldn't be the last time we saw him, because he does appear in some filler episodes of the Buu arc in Dragon Ball Z when Kid Buu goes to Grand Kai's planet looking for Goku and Vegeta, but he really doesn't do anything. And then, of course, we have his appearance in Fusion Reborn, where he is the distraction for Janemba while Goku and Vegeta fuse to make Gogeta. And that's pretty much the only time we saw this character. He would, of course, come back in various video games and things like that, but it remains to be seen as to whether or not Paikuhan or Pikkon will ever return. Unfortunately, we don't know, and that's pretty much all we do know about this character. I wonder who was the guy that killed Pikkon in the Western Quadrant, and I wonder what his backstory actually is. We may not ever know, and if we do know, Toriyama might just change it anyways. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to y'all next time.